Everyone in Canada has a past and a history. Many different people immigrated from all around the world to form the wonderful Canada that we know and love today. I'm Maisy, and my place in Canadian history starts in 1898 when my great-great-grandpa Harry H. Hesketh immigrated to Canada. He was born and raised in England, but made the courageous decision to move due to a strong disliking of the justice system and the royalty that was in charge at the time. He contemplated moving for a while, but he finally made his decision when a 12-year-old boy was hung by the royalty for crossing onto the Lord's land when he belonged on the Commons land. Harry was a sailor, so he decided to use his job as an escape to Canada. He jumped ship, but unfortunately he was unsuccessful and got caught. He then had to work for free for a full year as a sailor. Once his term of work was up, he moved to the States, more specifically Boston. This was not his original choice for immigration, and he was very persistent on pursuing a future in Canada. So with hard work and determination, he eventually worked his way up to an area just outside of Bienfait, Saskatchewan, where he got a job as a miner. At the time of his arrival, Wilfrid Laurier was the country's prime minister. Wilfrid wanted unity between the English and French people of the country. My great-great-grandfather wasn't greatly affected by the government and Laurier's laws at the time, other than having to file for homestead in 1903. Harry Hesketh improved the quarter section of land greatly. He spent many hours and a fair amount of money to improve the land. Within a few years, the land was rightfully his. He eventually built a small wooden house on the land where he lived with a fellow miner for 2 years. Then in 1905, his wife Beatrice Hope moved to Canada to live with him. Beatrice was born in Ireland but had to leave to survive. Her family was greatly affected by the potato famine even long after it was over. They suffered from poverty, so when she got an offer to be a nanny and maid for an American family, she took it. She moved to Philadelphia and worked for the family until she paid off her voyage fees that the family had originally paid for. She met my great-grandpa through advertisements for spouses. They both seemed interested in each other and formed a relationship by contacting each other with letters. Once she paid back her American family, she left for Canada so that she could be with Harry. When she got there, she moved in with my great-great-grandpa, and shortly after they got married. They had 7 kids and built a life together. He supported his family by working hard as a miner. Eventually the mine where he worked got closed down, so he had to sell his land and move to Bienfait. This was a challenge for him and his family, but he made it happen. Jobs were hard to maintain and required a lot of labor, but Harry knew that he needed to work hard to support his wife and children, including my great-grandpa, Thomas Hesketh. Thomas was born in 1914 in Bienfait, Saskatchewan. He was very dedicated to his family and offered help whenever he could. When he was just a young boy, his father broke his back, so he went to work at the mine to help support his family. He continued to work at the mine until one spring when many of the workers got laid off. He then became a farmhand, but he couldn't maintain that job either because Canada had slumped into an economic depression. In the 1930s, he would ride the rails looking for work, much like a hobo with thousands of other men. He eventually went as far as Ontario to get work. Once Canada began to pull out of depression, he returned in the winter and got his job back at the mine. Within the next little while, he got married to Marie Dillman. He met her when she came to Bienfait to take part of her schooling. After their wedding in 1938, they rented a house in Bienfait and had 4 girls and 1 boy who was the eldest in the family. His name was Kenneth Wayne Hesketh, but I just call him Grandpa Ken. My grandpa would have never had the life he lived if it wasn't for my great-grandpa working so hard each and every day at the mine to ensure that his family got everything that they needed. I believe that my grandpa developed a lot of his work ethic from watching his dad and hearing stories about his grandpa. My grandpa worked hard at many different places, such as steel construction companies, the oil field, and the mines. He worked on and off at the mines, but spent much of his life's work there because it was decently steady and he needed to support his family, which started in 1960 when he married his wife and my grandma, Josie Rolfus. Her birth name is Josephine, but everyone in my family just refers to her as Josie. My grandma Josie was born in Canada, but her parents Joseph Rolfus and Josephine Heckman moved from Germany in 1923. My great-grandpa Rolfus and great-grandma Josephine were dating before they left Germany, but they did not travel to Canada together. He came over by ship without her, but very shortly after she came over with one of my grandma's aunts and uncle. Joseph decided to immigrate to Canada because of the way the land was passed down in his family. The land was passed down to the family's oldest son, and since Joseph wasn't oldest, he got nothing. He needed a job to live, so he left for Canada. His wife Josephine had a steady job as a nanny of my grandma's aunt and uncle who I mentioned previously. She made the decision to move because the family she was a nanny for was interested in immigrating and her future husband had to leave to get a job. When they arrived in Canada, William Lyon Mackenzie King was the Prime Minister. He did not affect the members of my family much other than his war efforts as the leader of Canada. 2 of my great-grandpa Joseph's brothers died in the war, and it is possible that certain war regulations at the time could have been factors in their deaths. Although the deaths were hard on my family, I believe it made everyone stronger and more devoted to each other. Once my family arrived in Canada, they settled into a small area called Anaheim that was near Humboldt, Saskatchewan. They became farmers, which required a lot of devotion to the land and to each other. They lived off of the land, and it was their only means of survival. Many challenges arose because of this. Weather conditions were the greatest among all of their challenges. Canada had harsh winters where their crops froze, and droughts such as the drought known as the Dust Bowl that followed Canada's extreme economic depression. Times like this put my family in danger, but with hard work they managed to survive through it all. My grandma Josie was fond of her childhood despite all of the hard work that she had to do, but she knew more than anybody that hard work was most definitely worth it. She learned the bulk of this lesson when she met my grandpa. They met at my grandma's older sister's wedding. My grandpa was good friends with my grandma's brother Henry, so he went to the wedding with him. While he was there, he met my grandma. They had a connection and they knew that they wanted to see more of each other, so they talked on the phone and made plans whenever possible. Even though living away from each other was very hard, by maintaining their relationship they were rewarded with many wonderful things, such as love, marriage, and children. After they got married in 1960, my grandma moved into the Beanfate area to live with my grandpa. Just like all of my relatives, he worked hard to support all of his children, including my mother, Maureen Doust. My mom enjoyed her life with my grandparents and always wanted a big family like the one her parents were blessed with. In 1997, my mom got married to my dad, Myron Doust. They met when my mom was in university and my dad was a journeyman electrician. They shared the same group of friends and spent quite a bit of time together. They eventually started dating and fell in love. My dad was from the Estevan area and my mom was from the Beanfate area, so they ended up settling in the town of Beanfate. They lived there for about 5 years, and in that time they had my oldest sister Madison and I. Later, when they were pregnant with my third sister Maya, they moved to a farm about 10 minutes outside of Estevan where we still continue to live today. They then had my two other sisters, Marky and Malia. As you can see, my mom's side of the family is very intriguing and includes a lot of hardworking and good people. Although I have a whole other story on my dad's side, which includes a German and French background, I believe that my mom's side portrays a more accurate picture of who I am and where I came from. From information gathered from both sides, we can then come to an understanding that Canada had immigrants from many places for multiple different reasons. For starters, it was easier to immigrate to Canada back then because regulations weren't as strict as they are today. Two of the major groups, which were the British and German groups, both left for various reasons, but the main reasons included job opportunities and a change of improved government. The free land that was advertised in 1896 was also a factor in multiple different countries' immigration. From this we can understand why Canada is so desirable and multicultural today. My ancestors didn't want to immigrate to any other place. They chose Canada because they knew that it would be the best place to start their lives and to raise their families. I believe that Canada truly is one of the best places to live in the world. We are multicultural, accepting, and known as a very helpful and kind nation. I believe that Canada has helped to shape me into the person that I am today. I am a very proud Canadian and would not even think about changing any part of my history. I'm Maisy Doust, and this was my place in Canadian history.